Sergeant Major Dustin Paul told you that I won the World Championship of Public Speaking. What he can tell you is being world champion is a blessing and a curse. If you had been walking next to me in Chicago Airport 2 days after I won the World Championship, you would have seen my wife on one side of me and me carrying this gigantic crystal trophy. Just walking through the Chicago Airport. Right? And everybody's looking at me like, wow, who is that? I even thought I heard a lady say, is that Denzel Washington? You didn't have to laugh that hard, sir. But this is when I realized my life would never be the same. This petite lady in a pink dress runs up to me in the middle of the airport and starts reading the bottom of my trophy. She said, 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking. Wow! Say some things. And I was speechless. But that's when I realized no matter where I go in life, people are going to say, would you mind saying some things? So I came to a fundamental understanding about my life as a speaker, and really about yours as a facilitator too. I can no longer get ready to speak, I have to stay ready to speak. My motto is don't get ready, stay ready. So let me ask you a question, you try to follow me. How can you stay ready to speak? How can you always be ready to present? What do you think? Yell some things out. How can you always be ready to speak? Always have something to say. Good. What else? Consistent practice. Say it again. Consistent practice. All right. Here's how we got to have our connection stories. Then we're going to have selection. You have to have your connection stories so that you can make points. Right? I'll give you an example.
In fact, raise your hand if you watched any of the Summer Olympics. Oh, I love the Summer Olympics. But I like the 2012 Summer Olympics even better. Because, do you know who the oldest participant in the 2012 Summer Olympics was? Equestrian. Yes. It was a 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. So my 7-year-old son and I are watching this on TV. And of course, all the commentators kept harping on was the guy's age. Right? They just kept saying, he's 74. Can you believe he's 74? By golly, he's 74. Finally, my 7-year-old son looked up and said, well, how old is the horse?
About a week later, I couldn't get that question out of my mind, so I Googled it. And they asked this damn question. They said, how long will you continue to compete? Guess what his answer was? He said, I could go on forever, but my horse is 15. And that's when I realized my son's question was much more relevant than I thought. Okay? So even though he was only 7 years, my son, not the horse, was only 7 years old at the time, he taught me something very important about leadership, about being great. Never stop asking questions. Never stop asking. The moment you stop asking questions is the moment you stop growing. And we know from nature, the moment you stop growing is the moment you fall. So never stop asking questions. So I got a question for you. When you hear most people open a speech, what's the very first thing you hear them say? Hello? Say it again. Hello, my name is. Let me explain this. When you open a speech, you have 7 seconds before your audience realizes whether or not they like you. You have 30 seconds before they realize whether or not they want to hear more. Do you really want to waste that time with what I call unpleasant pleasantries? Right? Hello, I'm so glad to be here. I want to thank Commander Brunson. I want to thank so-and-so. Those are unpleasant pleasantries. It's okay to do that, but not first. Use the sitcom approach. If you ever watch a situation comedy, what are you going to see? They're going to get you into the story, and then they're going to go to commercial break. Okay? So we need to come out with a spark. We need to come out with a spark. What do you think is a great way to start your speech? Say it again. A joke. Okay, now I will say this. If you open with a joke, a lot of times the joke is on you. Right? Because the audience already heard it. But more importantly, they're going to say, that wasn't original. Right? So we might not want to open with a joke. But what can we open with? A story. A story. Jump right into your story. For example, if you can clap like you did the first time, I'll show you exactly how I used to open about 80% of my speeches. So if you can just clap like you did the first time. When I was in prison, visiting, I got you in 5 words, right? Because at least you'll be saying, well, this will be different, right? I got you in 5 words. I did almost start with go do, but I didn't want to make the commandment mad, right? This is how I normally start. I didn't start this way for you today, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But this is how I normally start. I know I'm going to ask you to clap one more. You look at it and be like, I already clapped for you twice. I'm not going to do it again. Clap one more time. I'll show you how I normally start. I was afraid to come here. Not because of you, but because several years ago I was traveling so much that my daughter, who was 6 years old at the time, actually decided to write me a note. And I keep it with me. Now, I've memorized it, but imagine if you received this. It said, Dear Daddy, I miss you. You are the best daddy in my whole family. I gotta be honest, up until I got that note, I thought I was the only daddy in the whole family. Now, why didn't I start that here? Why didn't I start with that here? What do you think? Because it's a common story for you, right? But I know that you have to sacrifice way more than I do, and I thank you now for your service and your sacrifice, okay? But I'm not gonna do it from the very beginning. I gotta open up, I gotta grab your attention and get into something else. So the other thing to understand here is know your audience. Know your audience, because I do open that way 90% of the time now, but I'm not gonna open that way when I know that you might be deployed for years or for months. Does that make sense? All right, well, we want to open with the story. What's another good way to open? What do you think? This is an English-speaking section over here, right? What do you think? What's another great way to open? Right, Commander said acknowledge something that they've done or what they've served or value they've brought. But you can also open with a question. Why not open with a question? Like when I'm speaking to college students, I might say something like this. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? Good, good, good. I'm not asking that now, but I'm saying that's when I speak to them, that's what I do. Okay. So, but you see how I got some response? It draws you in. So there are 3 parts to the opening. The first part is you need to open with a spark, and you can do that with a story or a question. The second part of the opening is we need a big promise. So here's what I promise you today. By the time you leave here today, you'll have the tools to keep your audience on the edge of their seats, make them glad they came, and get them to buy into your message. Are you glad you're here? See, it works. Right? So, now, first we're going to do this. We're going to get some ideas on how to craft your message, then how to deliver it, and then how to sell it so people buy into your message. Craft, deliver, sell. Okay? So the second part of the opening is the big promise. Right? So always answer this question for your audience. What do I want my audience to think, feel, or do differently as a result of experiencing me? Let me say it again. What do I want my audience to think, feel, or do differently as a result of experiencing me? Okay? You're going to leave here today with the tools you can use to become the type of leader others respect, admire, and want to follow. That's one of my big promises. Okay? Now, let me ask you a question. What's the most important word in public speaking? You. The word you. The more time you use you, the more you're going to have them drawn in. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen somebody give a promise like this? Today I'd like to share with you 3 ideas. You ever seen that? Guess what? Nobody cares what you'd like to do. So instead of saying, today I'd like to share with you 3 ideas, no, today you're going to pick up. Today you're going to receive. Today you're going to walk away with 3 ideas that can help you change your life in this way. So you is the most important word in speaking. Somebody said it is. I said, yes, you is. You is the most important word in speaking. So we have the value, we have the big promise, and then we have the roadmap. What's the roadmap today? Say it with me. Craft, deliver, sell. So now we're excited because you got their attention with the spark. Now you gave them the big promise so they know why they're here and what they're going to get out of it. And now you gave them the roadmap so they know where they're going. This is your opening. Now, once you get into an opening, then we have to get into crafting our message. Tell a story and make a point. You might know this one. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? What do you think? Fear? Good. Fear of what? Failure. Okay. What else? Financial. Okay. What else is standing in the way of most people living their dreams? That first step, the procrastination. Right? These are all great answers, but the number one thing is not what you think. See, I used to work for an internet company, and I wanted to go full-time into professional speaking. That was my goal. That was my dream. Raise your hand if you have a goal or a dream. Raise your hand if you want to do anything in life. I know I do. So I went to the vice president of this company. He was a young guy, good-looking guy. Looked like maybe like a young David Beckham. And I said, look, John, I'm going to be leaving because it's always been my dream to be a full-time professional speaker. He said, that's your dream, Craig? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, that's great. I really admire you for having one, but you can't leave. I said, what do you mean I can't leave? He said, well, Craig, we've been thinking about it, and we're going to raise your salary up to this. Salary means the same thing in Texas, right? Okay. Then you see my dilemma. I said, John, this is not a financial decision. This is about my dream. I call this a dream decision. He said, okay, I understand. I really do. But how about we raise your salary up to this? I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream. Do you know he raised it 4 times? I kid you not. He kept saying, we're going to raise your salary up to this. I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. He said, okay, Craig, how about if we raise your salary to well above $100,000? I said, dreams are overrated. Come on now. Six figures back then? Shoot, that's good money today. I could fill up my gas tank for a week on that kind of stuff. I said, but John, before I say yes, I got to go home and talk to my wife. So I went home to my wife. I said, honey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? What should I do? And my wife looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, take the money, fool. Like my wife, don't you? But if you've been sitting beside my wife and me just a few moments later, on our old, beat-up black leather sofa, with the chocolate chip cookies baking in the background, you would have heard her say something that can absolutely change your life, and I know it because it changed mine. She said, Craig, this is all you ever wanted. Ever since we met, this is all you ever talked about. I don't care how much they try to compensate you, your dream is not for sale. That's deep, isn't it? Because most people think the number one thing that stands between them and their dreams is some kind of bad obstacle. That's not it. The number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams is not something bad. Watch this. It's something good that they settle for. A good job, good relationship, good life. Did you realize that sometimes the enemy of the best is the good? So let me ask you a question, a personal question. Are you too good to be great? I looked at my wife, I said, see girl, that's why I married you. My dream is not for sale. That's what you said, wife. And I walked back in there the next day and I looked at Vice President in his eyes and I was firm. And I looked him directly in his face and I was bold. And I said to him, my wife said my dream is not for sale. But I left. And that very year, I spoke over 160 times in 44 states and 5 countries. And I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since. All right. Thank you, I appreciate it. Slow. But here's the thing. There's nothing special about me. There's something very special about the advice my wife gave me. No matter how good you are, what you do, don't let that good get in the way of the best. And no matter where you are in your life at this moment, please, no matter what you're going through, remember the words of my wife. Your dream is not for sale. Your dream is not for sale. Now, stop. point of that story? Your dream is not for sale. People are going to remember it, they're going to repost it, they're going to retweet it, they're going to repeat it. Here's the secret to public speaking. Don't speak to be remembered, speak to be repeated. Don't speak to be remembered, speak to be repeated. I gave that story in my store, India, on the Infosys campus. The next day I woke up, there was a newspaper slid under my door. I picked it up, there was a big picture of me on the front cover. Your dream is definitely not for sale. Don't speak to be remembered, speak to be repeated. Now, I'm going to say this, if you're ever wanting to get into business, it's important also because of this. Listen, when you get the buzz, you get the biz. I'm telling you, when you get the buzz and people are repeating your message, you're going to get more business. So don't speak to be remembered, speak to be repeated. From this article, I got booked to speak in Tokyo and Chiba, Japan. Right? Because I'm not speaking to be remembered, I'm not speaking to be heard, I'm speaking to be repeated. If you can get people repeating your message, then you're going to be touching their life for the long term. Now, the next logical question is, how? How do you speak to be repeated? Let me ask you a personal question. Raise your hand if you have a drunk uncle. People looking at me like, I am the drunk. I am the drunk. No, but listen. Have you ever heard a story that was all over the place? Have you ever given one? Me too. And it's because the speaker doesn't start crafting his message in the right place. One of the very first things we need to do when we start to craft our message, write this down, is come up with what I call a foundational phrase. A foundational phrase. What's a foundational phrase? Finish it for me. Don't get ready. Stay ready. What's a foundational phrase? Never stop asking questions. What's a foundational phrase? Your dream is not for sale. What do you notice about those phrases? They're short. Write this down. Your foundational phrase should be fewer than 10 words. Why? Easily remembered. By who? And by who else? Yeah, you gotta remember too. But not only easy to remember, it's also easy to what? Repeat. But here's the real reason why it should be fewer than 10 words. Because it forces you to be crystal clear on what your message is. Make no mistake about it, the number one reason the speaker won't get his message across, guess what? He's not crystal clear on what his message is. So fewer than 10 words forces you to be crystal clear. Right? Now I'm going to say something, and I want you to tell me what it means. No phrase, no stage. What's that mean? No phrase, no stage. Just yell it out. No phrase, no stage, sir. Yes, sir. That's it. That's it. If you don't have a foundational phrase for your story, don't take it to the stage because it's not ready yet. So the question is, well, where do I take it? And the answer is, take it to each other. Take it to friends. Take it to people you're with. And see what they, take it to ChatGPT. See what they get from it. I'll give you an example. I had a story that I wanted to tell, but I couldn't tell it because I didn't have a point. So I took it to a friend of mine, and I have to say this to Amanda, because I have people in this audience, I want to make sure you understand this. When you watch this clip, I was innocent. Okay. Here's an example. You ever gone to a drive-through restaurant, placed your order, and been misunderstood? I can't mention the name of this restaurant, but its initials are K, F, and C. So imagine this, you're in my passenger seat, we're driving through the KFC, and I always order 3 thighs. That's the only part of the chicken I like. So we get up to the intercom, and she says, "Welcome to KFC, may I help you?" I said, "Yes, I would like 3 thighs." She said, "Small or large?" And before I could even register it, I just blurted out, "Do you have large thighs?" Okay, I'm going to recommend that you never ask anyone that. And she came back and said, "Yes, we have small and large sides. What would you like?" I thought, "Oh, sides." But I was laughing all the way home. But I couldn't use it because I didn't have a foundational phrase. I love that story. It makes me laugh.
then I took it to Toastmasters. Somebody said, Craig, what you say is not necessarily what they hear.
So what I'm saying to you today is, don't create your speech in a vacuum. Create it with each other. See what they get from it. And I think we're going to do that right now. We're going to play a game called Find the Phrase. And here's how it works. You're going to wait as a quick story from me. And you're going to partner with one person. And you're going to have 60 seconds to come up with the best foundational phrase you can, fewer than 10 words. The winner gets a prize. I've got a program called the Speak and Prosper Academy. 8 different multi-study courses will teach you everything you need to know about public speaking, get you to the highest level of presenter. It's $797 online. But whoever comes up with the best foundational phrase gets access to my Speak and Prosper Academy for life. I got people looking at me like, I want to switch partners. All right, here's the story. You come up with the point. 1997, I'm flying back from Los Angeles to Baltimore. 5-hour flight. I sit down on the flight. Guy sits down next to me. And I remember thinking, this guy looks kind of like me. Just a slightly older version. I wonder what he does in life. Now, if you fly a lot, you'll appreciate this. The first 4.5 hours of the flight, what do you think we do? Say absolutely nothing to each other. The last half hour of the flight, he turns to me and he says, how you doing? Like, I'm fine, I've actually been here the whole time. He said, I'm sorry I didn't talk to you earlier, but I didn't want to talk to you and find out you were boring, and then be stuck talking to a boring person for 5 hours. You understand. And oddly enough, I did understand because I'm kind of the same way. But how do people start a conversation with you on a flight? What are some of the things they say? Where you at? Where you from? Where you go? The where you going? Like, hopefully we're going to the same place. I'm gonna get that one. Drop me off over Colleen. He didn't say any of that. In fact, it felt like he was looking through me. He says, what do you want to do? I said, well, right now I'm an events planner. Eventually I'd like to be a professional speaker. I said, why? What do you do? He said, I'm a professional speaker. I said, you are? He says, yes. As a matter of fact, I am the #1 gospel comedian in the United States of America. He was looking at me like, you looking at me like I was looking at him. I was like, I didn't even know there was such thing as a gospel comedian. He said, that's why I'm #1. So there's more to the story, but you don't need it. Because what you got right there, you can come up with the best foundational phrase, fewer than how many words, in the next 60 seconds. Clap one time, can you hear me? Clap one time, can you hear me? Clap one time, can you hear me? It's a rhythm. It's a rhythm. You know, I just speak in over America. They like how they do it. All right. So I want you, if you don't play, you can't win, right? So raise your hand if you have a foundational phrase. Yes, sir.
Where you are is not where you're going.
Where you are is not where you're going. I love it. See, now the bar is way up here. You should have gone first. Now the bar is way up here. Yes, sir.
I got 3.
You can use one. No, go ahead. Use all 3. Go ahead.
Okay. Does not a stranger think that strange?
Oh, did you hear that? Sometimes strangers ain't that strange. I like that. What else?
Connection, just an opening away.
Connection's just an opening away. I like that. What else?
And we're close to speaking.
We're closer than we think. I like all 3 of those. Okay, Mr. Ekinen and I are going to, I'm going to turn this over to you, right? So here's what I want you to do. You're going to pretend that this is your audience, and I want you to find out how many of them have ever been to Baltimore, which is where I flew out of. Okay? So how would you do it? How would you say it?
How many of you have been to DC? Did you go through a bridge when you went there? Or did you just fly to DC? Did you drive? Anybody drove there? From where did you drive? Detroit? Detroit? Texas? Baltimore? Baltimore?
Let me stop you before you go into your own. That was really good, right? Now, it was wrong. How would you like a tool you can use to make a deeper connection with your audience than you've ever felt before? If so, just say yes. Yes. All right. This is a slight edge principle. This is a slight edge principle, which means it's a slight change in the way you do things, but if you do it throughout your entire presentation, what a difference in how they'll feel your message. Not just hear it, but feel your message. All right, Mr. Econom, when your audience members leave your speech, hopefully at the end, do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, I really felt like I was part of a group? Or do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, it really felt like Mr. Econom was speaking directly to me? What do you want, A or B? How many people did Mr. Econom just speak to? A, everybody. How many people should he speak to? One. So how can Mr. Econom change or rephrase his question to make it sound and feel grammatically like he's speaking to one rather than 200? What can he say? Have you ever been to Baltimore? Can you imagine? Should you, would you, could you? Singular grammatically. Write this down, it will change your public speaking life. Speak to one, but look to all. Speak to one, but look to all. There are far too many speakers speaking to far too many people, far too all. And you'll hear them, they'll say things like, ladies and gentlemen, and folks, and friends, and boys and girls, and societal members, and members of the committee. You might as well be saying friends, Romans, country. Stop! Speak to one. Have you ever heard a speaker say, now some of you might be thinking, guess what? There is no some of you. Now you might be thinking. Or you've heard a speaker say, now many of you probably came to the conclusions. Guess what? There is no many of you. Now in case you come to the conclusion, and I have a test you can use to see if you can take it up on stage, I call it the hallway test. So me and Mr. Econom, stand over here for a second, gentlemen. Me and Mr. Econom are going to walk by each other in the hallway. Here's how the hallway test works. If I can say by walking by one person in the hallway, that means I can take it up on stage. So let's just see if I can say this line in my speech. You ready? How many of you have ever been to Baltimore? He's thinking there's only, where are you going? All right, that's not going to work, right? Because I said, how many of you? Now, if I speak to one, let's see what happens. Have you ever been to Baltimore? He said he thinks so. We made that type of impression on him. Raise your hand if you know any negative people. Raise your hand if you are a negative person. Yeah, look around, look around. We all know one, but no one is one, right? I don't even think that's mathematically possible. Here's what I should ask you. Raise your hand if the negative person you know is somewhere in this room. Hey, look, they're sitting next to you, just blink twice. Because I've spoken in 20 countries on 5 continents, and here's something I've never seen in my life. I have never seen a positive leader with a negative team. Let me say it again. I've never seen a positive leader with a negative team. Why? Do me a favor and stand up for a second. This is what I want you to do. I want you to put your right arm straight out like so, to the side. And I want you to keep it absolutely parallel to the ground. Now I want you to take your right thumb and your right index finger and put them together like so, making sure that your arm is still absolutely parallel to the ground. Now as fast as you can, without hurting yourself, I want you to take your right thumb and your right index finger and put them on your chin
Now turn to your neighbor and say, that's not your chin.
He said it. I saw you trying to move it back like I was here. Like I saw you. I got you. By the way, if you were up here, I have no idea what was going on. But it makes a good point, right? Actions speak louder than words. You didn't do as I said, you did as I did. That's why I've never seen a positive leader with a negative team, because they won't do as you say, they'll do as you do. Does that make sense? All right. But here's something else. I've also never seen an individual come close to reaching his or her goals if they hang around one negative person for an extended period of time. These people will drain you. We have got to stay away from the people with the crabs in a barrel mentality. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm from Maryland. What are we known for? Crabs. Yeah. If you take, you get live crabs and put them in the barrel, and then you take the lid off the top of the barrel, what's going to happen to the crabs? Right? But every time one tries to crawl out, another one will claw it and bring it back down. At least Maryland crabs. Right? Every time a crab tries to crawl out, another one will claw it and bring it back down, claw it. Same exact thing negative people do. And nobody in your circle can rise. When I wanted to write my first book, The Nuts and Bolts of Public Speaking, I went to some friends of mine, bad moves. Evidently, I forgot who I was talking to. You ever taken some positive news to some negative people? So I went to my friend and said, I'm going to write this book on public speaking. Who better than me, the world champion of public speaking, to write a book on the art of public speaking? I'm so excited. I can't wait. And they looked at me and said, don't you know the odds of getting it published? Don't you know it probably won't work? Don't you know even if you self-publish it, you still have to market it? Not that many people know you, Craig. By the way, who do you even think you are? Why do you think so highly of yourself? Why don't you just come back down here in this barrel and join us? I was so upset about this. I called my friend Steve. I said, Steve, you're positive. Tell me something. Tell me anything. Steve said, Craig, you like that book? I'll be the first one in line to purchase it. Never sell a product, always sell the results. Never sell a service, always sell the results. If you're in leadership, never sell an idea, always sell the results. You can say it all with me now. If you're in leadership, never sell change, always sell the results. If you're going for a promotion, never sell yourself. Well, you know I have 20 years. They don't care, always sell the results. Case in point, you know this one. Decades ago, I went to buy my first car ever in life. And I went to the dealership. And the salesperson came up to me, and he said, are you looking at that car? I said, yes, sir. He said, great, but let me tell you about it. This car has these types of brakes, this type of engine, this type of window, this type. What's he trying to sell? The car. He said, never sell a product, always sell what? The results. I said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not interested. I went to a different dealership. Same day, different salesperson, same car. I gotta be honest, this guy was anticipated where I was in my life at that time, you know, young and single. And so he walks up, he says, are you looking at that car? I said, yes, sir. He said, you're gonna look good in that. He said, yeah, he was flying down the road, the wind's gonna be blowing through your hair, and the girls, let me tell you, the girls will be all over. What do you think I did? I said, where am I sign? He made the sale because he sold the car, but he sold me what? The results. And he lied. I was loading there. Doesn't mean my pain. So definitely don't lie, but don't sell a product or service, idea or change. Always sell the results. Results.